Let's start from the beginning. This is your house in Evanston, Illinois. This is your beautiful wife, Allison. Your best friend is Larry Levy. And what is your name?
My name is Thomas Vale.
In our show, in Nowhere Man, it sets a flavor for how things really exist or can exist. Whoever will be incriminated by those photos or by those negatives obviously would be the organization that is politically powerful and financially powerful. Law enforcement, federal law enforcement, corporations, everybody has a price. Graduated from the Citadel in 1978. I went into the United States Marine Corps. In 1985, on my last tour as the counterterrorism officer, or one of the counterterrorism officers for the United States Marine Corps, I was recruited by the Central Intelligence Agency.
I know every op we've run since 1980. If we had hung 4 people in the jungle, I'd know it.
The area that I fell into was in the CIA was Special Operations Group. It was covert operations. And that is generally an environment where methods and technology that only the CIA knows about. We call that the black arts, and those are never disclosed. Highly skilled, highly trained individuals, maybe 2 or 3, have the ability to do what 100 generally are sent to do in conventional warfare. I don't like war, and I don't think that anybody I served with ever did. Knowing what I know now about big government, my motivations would be different. Would I go back to save my friends who I have personal relationships with that may be incarcerated or may have ended up in a war zone? Do it in a heartbeat. Would I sacrifice my life for it? Sure. It's just that I give much more thought to why things are taking place than just allowing myself to be abused by higher levels of government for hidden agendas. You can always make one person simply disappear, but you can't make 16 million people disappear without a lot of notice. So the new programs that are pretty much being initiated now may not seem as sexy as we would, where we sit someone in a chair and we put a skull cap on them and we zap these images in their head, although I'm not saying that that doesn't exist. It does. We've heard of things like frontal lobotomies and other things, so you can screw around physiologically. What happened was about 1989, 90, 91, a new program was called PL Windfall. And it was a program to influence what we call existing or pre-existing motivations. So let's take the United States and use this as an example, because certainly with the show, Nowhere Man, obviously we're seeing it's a domestic environment, and we're seeing an influence of either an agency, a government agency, or a quasi-government agency trying to influence at least one man, which could easily be influencing the masses. And that's done through altering those influences through 1, what we call conditioning, and 2, through hypnosis. 3 is the environmental modification, and 4 is what's called pharmaceutical inducements.
Now, repeat everything you've learned.
So I'll give you examples of those. Conditioning our entire society would be, let's say 9/11 was not caused by Osama bin Laden. And by the way, since I was in Afghanistan with Osama bin Laden during when the Russians invaded, I can certainly assure you that he was about 150% responsible for what was going on with that, although we tried to tell people and they just didn't want to listen. So, but let's say it wasn't Osama. Let's say it was a quasi-agency here, and they wanted to condition our society. So we create a threat, which is 9/11. The only way that we have any salvation is to rely on big government. Big government says, well, we got to secure everything. So now We're putting cameras here, we're putting cameras in your home, we're putting cameras on your street. This is all, of course, to protect you against terrorists. We're now conditioning an entire nation to rely on the government because now the entire nation feels so insecure that they have nowhere to turn except for somebody that can do something. Now, whether the reports are true or not, they come back from quote-unquote big government that says, we're almost catching Osama. We almost caught Osama. We had a threat here, we stopped that threat. Whether that's true or not, society will never know. The media in the United States is controlled by big government. Hypnosis is actually simpler than it has ever been before. We do that through media. We do it through television. In 1967, we started experimenting with hypnosis through visual effects, screens. It works beautifully.
3, stand by.
2, 1.
And up on 4.
If we want to know why we have so many people that get a thought in their head about murdering other people, it's really simple. Take a look at what we watch on TV.
Who do you work for?
Power of suggestion that forms in the subconscious. It's probably why we know out of the CIA why most CIA people that have families won't let their children watch any television. The third thing is what we call environmental modification. It kind of goes like this. I was in a meeting in 1993, and it was a meeting of very influential economic players and political players. And during that meeting, the discussion came up on control issues and advancement of economic agendas. Someone made the statement, and I'll never forget this. It said, if we could create a situation where every American, or at least almost every American, can own a little piece of America, the American dream. If we can make it possible where everybody can own a car and everybody has the possibility of buying and owning their own home, they'll be so comfortable with their little piece of America that we will actually run America. And where does that put us as Americans? It puts us in a place that when things aren't going right in our country, we forget that our Constitution says we the people, not we the government. Last thing we have is called pharmaceutical inducements, and it's used for the masses also. Years ago, the FDA approved a substance called sugar. Sugar, in its purest form, is addictive as heroin. Food corporations know that. We all know that. The FDA approved that. It became a food additive. It became a food additive because if you could addict people to certain foods, they would always go back and buy those foods. They've been conditioned physiologically through a pharmaceutical inducement to go back and buy food, which puts money in somebody's pocket. And so if you look at those four things that we're talking about, what we have managed to do is actually condition and influence the masses of an entire nation. There's a lot of effort that is put into locating certain people that are of importance to whatever program that may be.
Senator Wallace.
Mr. Vale.
Let's do this without making a scene.
The way the characters are portrayed, it's kind of right on. It was kind of eerie. The secret agency, they did a great job with that. You know, there are people that come after you with what we call smiling eyes.
You mind if I smoke?
No, do you mind if I leave?
You mind if I leave? That's very funny. I like that.
They're not in a hurry. They know what they're doing. Our main character is just at a loss as to why and how and where the next curveball is coming. It's so right on.
Shut up. Shut up. You know, I don't know what's in this happy juice, but there's about 6 times as much of it as you people use to quiet us down.
Brainwashing has long been the foundation most psychological warfare. Induce fear, create reactions, have them speak a certain way, do a certain thing, almost a technological, hypnotic method. I have not only witnessed, I have been under hypnosis myself. It worked on me, I allowed it to work on me. It still works on me to this day. Could it have happened without my willingness for it to be so? Yeah, today's technology, sure. I have the ability to do self-hypnosis now, only from training, to do some interesting things, as do many special operations people.
Who are you?
Come on, what the hell is going on?
Allison, you all right?
If we take a look, just common sense, if we take a look at what Hollywood can do with a stage, a setting, they can erect a set, and they can make that whole set disappear. And I mean, if it's not a big set, you can make it disappear in a couple hours. Look at what Hollywood can do with special effects. Look at what Hollywood can do with makeup. Look at what they can do with just creating a false environment. Don't you think that the people that are involved with real money, real world economy, real change, are smart enough to look at that and use as an example, and in many cases hire those very same specialists to recreate a world for them that they can hide in? Of course they do.
Vale? Do I know you, Mr. Vale?
What are you talking about? Yeah, we met this morning.
When I was in the agency, and I won't be specific as to where, I worked for a cover company. It was called something that it wasn't. It was a civilian company. It was in a building, an entire floor of that building. We owned that entire floor, and we worked there. And we worked there for a number of years. And then when we believed that it would be compromised, that entire floor disappeared in under 24 hours. And nowhere, man, he chooses not to sit back in his house, in his car. And he's fighting somebody so much bigger.
Yeah, that's right.
The sad part about it, it just happens to be in his own country and no one else wants to help. One good thing our character does, which is great, he understands that it's not getting from point A to point B that counts. It's what he does between those 2 points when things go bad.
All right, this picture, you have it with you?
Yeah, I have printed it, yeah.
All right, you let me see it. If I think it's worth the senator's time, we'll move on to the next step.
He chooses to be, in my opinion, almost a real American. He's not going to let anybody rule his life. He wants to know why. And he's protecting all of his freedom to photography, his freedom to shoot what he wants to shoot, the freedom of his life, the things that he loved. He's fighting for those things.
How will I find you?
You won't. I'll find you.
I would do exactly what Tom Vale did. And I would keep fighting. And my strategy might be different, but mine is based on the fact that I have skill levels as a former espionage officer. For a guy that's never been down there, Tom Vale's doing an excellent job. He's an amazing character, and I think I would do exactly what he's doing. Most people in America want to engage in conversation. They want to feel needed. They want to feel part of something. So you can drag information out of them. So security number, address. If you always work on a need-to-know basis, ask yourself, do they have a need to know? You'll find out that the greater percentage of people that engage in a conversation with you don't have a need to know anything about you. And it doesn't mean you're not being friendly. You can certainly be friendly, but you don't have to answer their questions. That protects you. That protects you against identity theft.
They're so real, Thomas. So unforgiving.
Oh, the truth is unforgiving. Don't shoot the messenger.
Or the photographer.
Right, or the photographer.
If you want to disappear, you got to go underground. You got to really go underground. And that's no credit cards. That's just cash. That's an alias. And that's living like the homeless. Best way to disappear, be a homeless person. For our character, are things really ugly? Yeah, he's lost his wife. His whole life is being taken away from him, and he's still questioning why. Is it really just all about that photograph? And the question is still, what is it in the photograph? I mean, what was it about that photograph? Who is it that's behind this? Sometimes you just don't know why. You just don't know why. You just search, and at the end of your journey here, if you get an answer for it, then you get an answer. But think about this. Does it really matter what the answer is? I mean, our character on TV. What's more important? Is it important that he finds out who and why? Or is it important that he regains his life and his identity? Maybe that's more important